I'm just at the park, and the thought is that God is sovereignly gracious in and through your suffering. Do you know the story of Joseph? Well, Joseph in the Bible, he's the great grandson of Abraham, and he actually gets betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, and he goes into Egypt, right? And so he gets falsely accused, and then he gets condemned to go into prison. But in all these circumstances, God is actually working in and through his suffering, because Joseph actually ends up being a step below Pharaoh. He gets taken out of prison, he's not condemned to die, and he ends up being able to provide enough food, enough grain to sustain and save the life of his brothers during a famine which was to happen. So it's all God's plan, even through these horrific circumstances, which would have lasted, I don't know, like 14 years. It's God's plan to provide for the nations, to provide for the brothers. And if you look to Christ, it's a similar pattern, right? He's falsely accused, he's condemned to die, and he's betrayed by his brothers, yet Christ is not left in that prison, in that pit, in the grave, but he's exalted to the right hand of God. And as I reflect upon my life, I can see how God has worked through suffering in my life. For example, it's like the last year and a half of my life have just been some of the most difficult in my entire life, and just harrowing psychological circumstances, and just difficult areas of accommodation and relationships, and so many different things, and work, but in that I've actually come to a better position in all of them. And so I just want to encourage you that if you are a Christian, well, God is sovereign over your suffering, and he will ordain it for good. As Joseph said, what his brothers meant for evil, God meant for good. In a mysterious way we cannot understand, that yes, God will make good things out of it. So don't despair, but just worry about one day at a time, in a manner of speaking, and just give yourself to reading the scriptures, to following Jesus Christ. Your suffering has purpose if you're a Christian, but if you're not a Christian, well then yes, ultimately your suffering does have purpose, but in and of yourself, in your own life, it's absolutely meaningless, and you're just suffering for yourself. So I would just commend you to trust in Christ, who suffered for us, and he suffered though he was righteous. You and I have all sinned, but Christ suffered perfectly for us. So take a step back, take a breath, and look at the scriptures and see that God is able and indeed works through suffering. And that is one of the biggest messages of the Bible. So suffering sucks, but God is in control of it and will implement his plan through that. Have a good day.